It's GB News presenter Nigel Farage. Good morning, Nigel. Always good to see you. You have really got behind this campaign for the postmasters in the way that you do for normal people. Why has it taken this ITV docudrama, Nigel, to put this front and centre of the media and people's minds?
This is a classic case of the great and the good, those with knighthoods, CBEs, peerages, wealthy people, a political establishment that chose not to listen in any way at all. And yes, it did take a docudrama on ITV, and a very well-produced one too, I must say, to tug at the heartstrings of the public and to make them realise that once again, the little people are being ignored. And that's why the public feeling and momentum behind this campaign is just as strong as it was during the expenses scandal and indeed during the Brexit referendum. And it shows the gulf that exists in this country between the governors and the governed. At last, it would appear that some recompense is coming, though I suspect when it comes for the fight for genuine compensation, this may well take a long time, by which many of those who deserve to be compensated will probably have died.
Yeah, and of course, Nigel, we know 4 people committed suicide who are linked to this scandal. People have lost homes, life savings, and those people who have been compensated, often a lot of the money they got was gobbled up by hugely expensive legal fees because the Post Office used such expensive lawyers to try to crush these people.
Yes, I mean, not just legal fees, Andrew. Many people had to sell their houses. So if you sold your house 20 years ago and you've been renting for the last 20 years, think what that's cost you. So, I mean, this really has hurt people in the most extraordinary way, and their extended families, let alone their reputations, their standing within their local communities. But you know, we've had nearly 14 years of Conservative government. They did nothing. We have a Labour leader who was the Director of Public Prosecutions at the time this reached a peak, and we now know that the Crown Prosecution Service took some of those cases themselves. He didn't intervene. And a Liberal Democrat leader who, you know, was Postal Services Minister again during the peak period. I mean, you know, one can't point the finger of blame at any party in particular. This is the establishment that ignored the little people.
It's got echoes, actually, Nigel, of the debanking scandal, hasn't it? There's I presume you're starting the script on the debanking docudrama for ITV, because I think that's another story. This idea, as you say, of the establishment and the normal person on the street, and the gulf between the two being bigger than it has ever been. Is that partly why you think this docudrama has caught the imagination? It's also because it is just historical. It's incredibly unwoke. There are no characters shoehorned in because they're having gender identity issues, or there's none of that sort of shoehorn that the British public just don't want to see. It's just real life.
Yeah, it's real life, it's real people, it's real families. And, you know, remember, you know, that actually the local postmaster or postmistress is a respected figure of the communities. My village in which I live, we lost the post office a few years ago with really quite devastating consequences for the local community, for social interaction that takes place in the village. So, yeah, it's just about ordinary folk, and they've been trampled on, and at last they're getting their hearing, and the British public is very, very firmly behind them. And, you know, you draw the parallel with debanking. I mean, who were the people that have been hurt by debanking? Not me, because I was big enough and ugly enough to fight back. But I can tell you, there are tens of thousands of small businesses all over this country who were closed down by the banks with no good reason whatsoever and who've lost their businesses. So the parallels run through so many things.
Can we ask you as well, Nigel, you mentioned Keir Starmer. There's many things that are not right with this country, a lot of things to be fixed. He's going to make a speech today where he's going to unashamedly embrace what he calls the nanny state, which is going to involve teaching 3 to 5-year-olds how to brush their teeth properly and to send health visitors into people's homes to vaccinate children. Is this the place of a government?
No, not at all. And what Keir Starmer is doing is taking the massive intrusion into our lives at every level that we've seen under a Conservative government and just taking it further. I mean, the truth is, there isn't much to choose between them. Yes, of course, it's a step way too far. And I'm sure that, Bev and other parents will say this is just ridiculous. We don't need to be treated like this. But don't think the state has reduced in size in the last 14 years either. And that perhaps is one of the big problems that people face. Here we are at the start of a general election year, and you've really got to ask yourself, what are the fundamental philosophical differences between these two parties? And they're very small.
I think actually on the teeth cleaning thing, I think it's a little bit more, I'm a bit conflicted about it, I can't lie, because clearly children aren't learning to clean their teeth at home, they're not being taught to clean their teeth. And in a way, it's not the job of a teacher, and actually Wes Streeting was being grilled on this morning on various media outlets, and he said that actually some of the teachers will have to teach this children. I mean, if you've been to you've been and got your degree and you've qualified as a teacher, I think you're the one who's going to be feeling a little demeaned about the fact that you're now then teaching a 4-year-old how to use a toothbrush. But in terms of doing something for the next generation, Nigel, is the impulse not right in terms of health? I'd quite like to see him tackle the food industry, I can't lie.
Well, look, I mean, dental hygiene clearly is very important, and the British famously have some of the worst teeth in the world. I think we're rather better than we used to be. Look, of course we want parents to do these things, but I mean, I wouldn't actually, Bev, have any objection, with people going into reception classes at primary school. I don't see why age 5 you can't give kids basic lessons about personal hygiene, teeth cleaning. I wouldn't find that objectionable at all. It's just the idea that Keir Starmer wants to tell us how to clean our teeth. That's the quite objectionable. Yeah,
you're absolutely right. The fact that they're claiming it as a policy and their ownership of this idea rather than just introducing it into the curriculum in terms of your personal hygiene lessons. What's going on with reform, Nigel? Are you going to stand for them or not? Come on, it's what the public want.
I don't know.
Come on, you must know.
No, I don't know. I honestly and truthfully don't know. What I will say is this, that, Richard Tice is working blooming hard at reform. He is utterly determined. When he says he won't do sweetheart deals with Conservatives, he means it. Remember, we did this in 2019. We helped them get an 80-seat majority, and they've completely blown it. They've blown trust. They've damaged the country hugely. They've not kept their promises. And slowly but surely, through organic growth, reform's at 11%. It was polling third in a couple of opinion polls this week. And all I know for certain is that reform is going to get many, many millions of votes, maybe more millions than we can even believe at this moment in time. As for me, well, look, I'm the honorary president of it. I was the founder of it. I believe in what it says and what it stands for. And by the way, it wants to reverse the size of the state, the level of control over our lives, and it genuinely does. I'll be honest with you, I rather enjoy my work at GB News. I rather enjoy my life at the moment. I spent nearly 21 years in the European Parliament. For me to go back and throw myself into that world again on the eve of my 60th birthday, it's not necessarily top of my bucket list, but that doesn't mean I won't do it.